Hi everyone, how are you? My name is Lauren. I'll be your host for tonight, and I just want to welcome you to our Girl Scout virtual chocolate tasting. I'm so happy you're all joining us tonight. We have a pretty awesome group here, so I won't take up too much of your time. I quickly want to go over some of the ground rules for this tasting just so that everyone's on the same page. So for tonight, since we have such a big group and we want you to be able to enjoy this experience, hear us all perfectly, all of your videos and microphones are turned off. So we cannot hear or see any of you. The best way, if you have any questions throughout this tasting, is to use the Q&A function that's at the bottom of your screen. And then also just to talk to each other about what you're tasting, what you're smelling. If you're tasting the same thing as our chocolatier, Tammy Jo, use that chat feature. I see a bunch of you already using it and saying hi to everyone, which is awesome. I won't be able to monitor that too much throughout the tasting. So if you have any questions, make sure to put it in the Q&A area. We also won't really be able to monitor that raise hand function either. So the Q&A is the best place. Since we can't see or hear any of you, and this is normally such an interactive experience, I'd love for you all to take out your phone right now, take a photo of who you're doing this with, how you have it set up, where you're doing it, and tag Ethel M Chocolates on Instagram or Facebook, and hashtag Ethel M Chocolates on Instagram or Facebook, so we can see how you guys have your tasting set up at home. Lastly, I want to talk about some upcoming tastings once we're done here, and then I also have a discount at the very, very end. So make sure you stay tuned throughout the entire experience so I can get that discount over to you all so you can shop once you're done. All right, I will go ahead and introduce Tammy Jo, and then she will get this on the road so we can all eat the chocolate. So Tammy Jo is going to be your chocolatier for tonight. She has been with us for 20 years now. So she is a professional when it comes to chocolate. She knows all about how the machines are made, how they make the pieces, all the history. And then she also works on the retail side. So she's training associates daily, and she's learning more about chocolate with our Mars brand every day. So I want to go ahead and hand it over to Tammy Jo.
Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing today? I am so excited to share all of my chocolate knowledge with you guys. I was thinking about making it a little fun and kind of quizzing you at the end, seeing if you guys have any, if you are paying attention and have those answers. So first off, let's talk about chocolate. Yes, as Lauren was saying, I have 20 years of experience eating chocolate and enjoying it, and also learning about it. So I'm going to share all of that knowledge with you today. So first, let's go into the tools we're going to use to create our experience. So we're going to go into history, so you know a little bit more about Ethel M, and then we're going to get into all of the tools, okay? If you haven't already, go ahead and open your box, get your chocolate ready, get your placemat ready, and then grab a drink of water, and I'm going to go over the history with you guys. So Ethel M, where do we come from? So it comes from Forrest Mars. When he retired in 1976 from the Mars Corporation, he moved out here to retire. And he got bored of retirement rather quickly. By 79, he was already wanting to do more. He wanted to do the gourmet chocolate his mom originally started making in 1911. That's when she originally started making buttercreams and toffees and brittles. And he grew up smelling all these delicious flavors while she was cooking in the kitchen and getting to try them all. And so he wanted to bring the gourmet side to the world with all of the buttercreams that she used to make. So he opened the factory after he retired, and he opened the factory in 1981, and he named it after his mother, Ethel Mars, and that's what the M stands for. It stands for Mars. He also was a desert fan. He loved cacti. He loved the desert plants, and he wanted to grow a garden. So that's why we have a 3-acre cactus garden at our facility. And there's some photos of how it looks when it's blooming. We also light it up during Christmas. So there's over 1 million lights on our Christmas garden when it's all lit up. It's absolutely gorgeous. We are going to be having a webinar version of that first lighting. So that's really exciting. So that way everybody can enjoy it, and it's going to come with a cool little kit, but Lauren will tell you more about that later. We also are very proud to be completely sustainable as far as power goes. So 100% of our power during peak hours comes from our solar garden. We have a 4.4 acre solar garden, and it gives us 100% of our power during peak hours, during busy hours. And what that basically does, to give you a number, is it removes 170 cars off the road each year. And so we're very, very excited about that. We installed those in 2011. So we're very, very proud of our solar panels, helping out the world, one chocolate at a time. All right, so now we're gonna get into the tools that we have to enjoy our chocolate. So there's some guidelines that's really gonna enhance the experience and make it more interesting. Now, normally when we eat chocolate, I don't know about you guys, but I don't have patience. I like to eat chocolate right away. If there's chocolate in front of me, I will eat it very quickly. But I have learned to slow down and be more mindful about how I'm eating the chocolate and how it was made and why it was made that way and the texture. So we're gonna go over all of that. So the first step is touch. So of course you have to touch it to pick it up to eat it, but we're really gonna be thinking about the touch. You know, how does it feel? Is it smooth? Is it bumpy? Does that make you think it's gonna have nuts? Is it gonna have a smooth center? Is it gonna be runny? We don't know yet. So number 2 is smell. 70% of your taste actually comes from your smell. So every time we're about to take a bite, what we're gonna do is we're gonna wait and we're gonna smell it first. So take a deep breath in, and what we're looking for is, can you smell something besides the chocolate? We know it's chocolate, but what else is there? Does it smell like flowers? Is it gonna be fruity? Do you smell an earthy tone? Maybe it's gonna be a nut, we don't know. So you wanna smell it, it's gonna heighten your taste and really bring out all of the flavors. And then we're gonna go ahead and take a bite. So you're gonna take a small bite, you're gonna chew a couple times, push it up to the roof of your mouth, and then you're gonna let it melt very slowly. And think about the texture and the taste and how that piece was created. As you're enjoying the rest of your piece, I will then tell you all the fun facts about that piece and how it was created. So now let's go to our placemat and see what that looks like and how we're going to use it. So this is really fun. It has a spot for the name, it has a spot for sight and feel. So how does it feel? What did it look like? What did it remind you of? What is the smell? What is the aroma? When you first smelled it, what did you smell? And then of course, you're gonna talk about the overall taste and texture and your opinion. What did you think of this piece? Was it your favorite? This is really gonna help you identify like which one you like the best, because sometimes after you eat the first one, it's so good. And then the second one gets better. And then the third one's even better than that one. So you kind of get confused on which one was your favorite. So by reading your notes later, you'll realize which one you liked and why, and that's really cool. The other thing that we're gonna use on the placemat is our flavor wheel, okay? So the flavor wheel here is gonna help you identify what you're tasting. Sometimes you're eating it and it's on the tip of your tongue and you can't quite pinpoint what exactly it is that's different. Look at the placemat, look at that flavor wheel. It's really gonna help you identify like what flavors you're noticing. And we're gonna go over each one, and I'll also share my opinions. And again, this is supposed to be very interactive, so definitely use your chat box when we're eating our pieces and see if anyone else is tasting what you're tasting, because everybody tastes things differently. Everybody has different experiences, or different scents will remind us of different things. So there's no wrong answer. So feel free to let us know what you guys think. So let's go ahead and start off with our first piece of chocolate. We're gonna start off with our sea salt caramel. So this one is kind of firm, right? It's kind of firm, it's a square, it has kind of a matte finish. There's sea salt on the top of it. So we kind of wonder, how did the sea salt get on top? You know, like how did they get the sea salt? How did they get the caramel inside? All right, so let's go ahead and smell our chocolate to see what we smell. I can smell the salt and the chocolate. All right, let's go ahead and take a bite. Now, sea salt is really fun to take in 2 different types of bites. So the first bite, you want to do it salt up. Second bite, you're actually going to flip it upside down and do it salt down. And that's going to completely change how it tastes. So let us all know, like, if you like salt up or salt down, okay? I'm going to go ahead and take a bite. Very chewy, but not sticky. This is a really, really good piece. It's very buttery. It's very creamy. So as you're enjoying your piece, again, write down those, flavors. Like, what does it go into? For me, I think it goes into definitely sweet aromatics. It goes into caramel. It has a little bit of honey. It goes into spices because of the salt. Definitely a little bit of dairy and a little bit of the roasted category because of the cocoa, because of the chocolate. So this piece, as you're enjoying it, I'm going to tell you about how it was created. This one is going to be melted down in our double boilers, also known as a steam kettle. And what that means is basically there's a double lined pot. So there's like one pot and then there's a pot on the outside of that. And it creates steam in between the walls of that, creating lots of heat, but without it being a direct fire. So that way, when you're putting the ingredients in and you're melting it down, it's not going to scorch it, it's not going to burn it, and they're able to control the temperature better. So they're able to melt down all the ingredients, crystallize the sugar, and create this buttery, delicious caramel. From there, then you can see the photo there, they're actually pouring it onto the table, and the tables have special pipes that go through, controlling the temperature of the table as well. So when they pour the candy on, they're going to cool it down very slowly and gradually based on how it needs to be cooled using the temperature changing of the table. So once they pour it all down and they smooth it out and it's chilled, they then can cut it into big slabs of caramel. They then take that and they feed it through a machine that's going to cut it and score it both directions, creating the perfect square piece of caramel every single time. From there, they're going to put it on the conveyor belt. As you see in the photo, there's this long conveyor belt with a whole bunch of squarey caramels. They're going to go through that curtain of chocolate. And what's happening is there's a big tank full of chocolate. It pumps up into a trough, creating a curtain of chocolate that is constantly flowing. It falls back down into the tank where it came from, so nothing's wasted. And then as they go through, they actually hand pinch a little pinch of salt onto each piece. They hand sprinkle the salt onto every single caramel that goes by. I think that is so fascinating that we still to this day do hands-on involvement, ensuring that each piece has just the right amount of salt. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get into the trees. Let's talk about where the trees come from and learn a little bit about that. And then we're going to go back to the chocolate. Okay, so pay attention because I might quiz you on some of the information. I might ask 1 or 2 questions, okay? All right, so this is a map of where cacao trees come from. So the dark shaded areas are where you can find the cacao trees. That's the only area they can grow in because of the environment. It has to be very high humidity. It doesn't really get lower than 80 degrees. It's always sunny. And so South America, West Africa, and parts of Asia are the main areas where you can find the cacao trees. And we source our beans from Indonesia, Brazil, and West Africa. So let's go deeper into the details about the trees. Let's look at the actual tree itself. This I have here is a cocoa pod, okay? This one's dehydrated, so I always call it a like mummified or like shrunken head version because it's a little bit smaller than it normally would be if it wasn't dehydrated. So it's kind of wrinkly. And if you listen closely, the beans are still inside. So once the flowers that bloom on the tree bloom all over the tree, from the trunk all the way up into the branches, so they can bloom anywhere on the tree. Really cool fun fact, and you can use this information however you choose. The pod is considered the fruit of the tree. So to me, I feel like that means chocolate's a fruit. Why not? So when the flowers bloom, it takes, they get pollinated, and then it takes 5 to 8 months to fully grow into a pod. And there's going to be 45 to 60 beans in each pod. But how do they get them off the tree? The stem is so thick that they have to be cut with a machete. So you can't just twist it off and pull it, and it's not going to just fall off when it's ripe. They actually have to be cut off. So they're going to use a machete to cut them off, and then they're going to crack them open. And we have another photo to show you of what that looks like. So let's look back at that slide and look at those pictures. The pod opening. So this is what it looks like when they open it up. They scoop out all of the beans, and they're kind of just compacted in there. And they are each individually covered with this really slimy goo. It kind of looks like, it feels like slimy, and it's very sweet though. Like if you were to eat one of the beans, it's actually edible at this point. It doesn't taste like chocolate yet, but it's very fruity. I got to try one, and to me, it tasted kind of like mango, but it also tasted like pineapple at the same time. So it was very acidic, but it had a lot of sweetness. So they're going to leave all that pulp on there. And what that's going to do is it's going to help it ferment. That's the next stage. After they gather all of the pods and they crack them open, get all the beans out, they're going to go into fermentation. That basically means they're going to sit in a box for 5 days, and they're going to ferment and burn off all of the pulp. That will change the acidicness of the bean. From there, they then go to the sun drying table, and that is to get rid of all of the moisture out of the bean. That process takes about 5 days. It's going to sit out in the sun, and then they're constantly rotate it to make sure that all the moisture is out of the bean. All righty. Let's go ahead and get into the next set of chocolate. All right, so we've got a couple different options for those out there that have a nut allergen. So you can choose either the almond butter crisp, or you can have the vanilla truffle. Okay. Both equally delicious. All right, so let's open up this almond butter crisp and take a closer look. This one, you'll notice, is wrapped in foil. The reason for that is because it has all of these crushed nuts on it, and we want to make sure that all those nuts stay on while it's being packaged for you guys. So we foil this one to keep them all on there. Look at the texture of that one. It's like really bumpy, right? It's really bumpy. It's really hard. So let's go ahead and smell this piece and see what we smell. I smell kind of like a woody flavor, or maybe like, it reminds me of the smell of hay. Does anybody else smell that? All right, let's go ahead and take a bite. Let's see. What are we tasting? I'm tasting lots of almonds. Definitely hits the nut category. It has a lot of almonds, lots of butter. I'm tasting a lot of butter. It goes into dairy, right? What other categories does it go in? Sweet aromatics, right? I notice honey, and I notice the toffee. Definitely roasted, but also I think it goes into earthy too, with a little bit of kind of like a woody flavor, because almonds tend to kind of have like that woody tone. Definitely a really good piece. And just remember, in between each different piece of chocolate that we're going to be trying, you want to drink a little bit of water, so that way you're cleansing your palate so that you have fresh taste buds for your next piece. So don't forget to take a little drink of water in between each piece. All righty, let's talk about how this piece was created while you guys are finishing off your piece. So as you can tell, this one's really, really firm. So this one is going to, again, be melted down in the copper kettle gas heaters. They melt down all the ingredients, and then they're gonna pour it onto the table, similar to the caramel, but with the toffee, the way that it's cooked causes it to, and the ingredients, it's going to be like hard. So when it cools, it actually gets really, really, really hard. So right before it's fully cooled is when they're going to cut it, and they have a rolling pin. with a round blade on it. And there's a whole bunch of little round blades. And based on how wide or how close together those blades are, will determine the size of the piece. So they can take their rolling pin and they just roll it one direction, and then they turn it and they roll it the other direction, and that causes the perfect squared pieces. And then from there, they break it up by hand. They lay it on the conveyor belt. It's going to go through that curtain of chocolate that's constantly flowing. And then they're going to get a warm fan that blows air onto it to smooth it out so it has just the right amount of chocolate. From there, it's going to come out of the conveyor belt. And then before it goes into a cooling tunnel, what happens is someone has a cookie sheet. They pull the cookie sheet out and it's covered with crushed almonds. They catch all the chocolate onto the cookie sheet and then they hand toss each piece, and then they set that aside. They grab the next sheet for the next batch of almond butter crisp, and then they hand toss every single one, which is pretty cool. And then from there, it gets foiled, and then each one is inspected with a little hand hug to make sure that the foil is completely sealed, which is really cool. Alrighty, if you are trying the one without nuts, that one is the vanilla truffle. This one is a ganache. It has heavy whipping cream and chocolate inside. So it's really smooth, really creamy, very delicious. It goes into dairy. It goes into sweet aromatics with a little hint of that vanilla and cooked milk. So that one's going to be really, really good too. Really kind of melts in your mouth. Very delicious. All righty, let's go on to our next one. So our next pieces are going to be our pecan caramel rapture and our dark chocolate satin cream. Okay, so if you have a nut allergy, go ahead and eat this one. If you are okay with nuts, you can eat the pecan caramel rapture. And don't forget to cleanse your palate with a little bit of water in between each piece. Alrighty. So let's take a look at the rapture. This one's really bumpy. So it definitely looks like it's going to have some nuts in it, right? There's all these little kind of spots sticking out. It's also kind of squishy. It's a little soft, so it's not really, really hard like the toffee was. Let's go ahead and smell it and see if we can identify what kind of nut it is. We kind of already know by the name of it, but can you actually smell the nut or do you just smell chocolate? I definitely smell the chocolate. A little bit of the caramel, but I can smell the pecans too. All right, so I'm gonna add an extra rule, okay? If you already took a bite, it's okay, you could do it on your second bite. But it's really fun no matter what piece you're trying right now. So what we're gonna do is we're going to plug our nose. And the reason why is because that will take away 70% of our taste. Why would I want you to do that? Because when you take that away and you're so focused on what you're tasting, you'll be able to taste a little bit, but then when you unplug your nose, all of a sudden the flavor just comes rushing at you and it's very intense and it's very cool. So go ahead and smell your chocolate. Plug your nose, like as if you're going underwater. Go ahead and plug your nose like this and then take a bite. And then release whenever you feel comfortable. Try to hold it for as long as you can though. So really think about what happened just now. When my nose was plugged, I could tell that there was nuts in it. I kind of got a little bit of flavor from it, but I couldn't really taste it very much. And then all of a sudden when I unplugged my nose, it was like I tasted all these really strong roasted pecans and lots of butter from the caramel. And for me, I would say it goes into earthy first with a little bit of wood flavor. And then it went into sweet aromatics with dairy and the honey and the butterscotch caramel flavors. And then it went into roasted. So that's kind of what I noticed first. What about you guys? Did you guys like that piece? That one's really, really good. So with the dark chocolate, if you're eating the dark chocolate buttercream, this one is our satin cream. So in the filling is going to be butter and sugar and they mix that in our cream beater to give it that really thick, fudgy texture. And it's just kind of really roasted. It has like a dark chocolate shell. So you're gonna get definitely the toasted flavor. You're gonna get like maybe a cocoa or coffee flavor from this one. It's also gonna go into dairy as well. And definitely, I would say sweet aromatics too. Alrighty, so let's talk about how these pieces were created. So both these pieces are firm. They're going to go through the enrobing machine. So basically with the caramel, they drop the caramel first, and they have a machine called the extruder that they pour the caramel into, and then that drops little tiny, the big mounds of caramel. And then they're going to drop the nuts on. And there's someone watching it go by to make sure that each patty has the right amount of nuts. We're very particular about that. We want to make sure that every time you take a bite, you have a little bit of the pecans in every bite. So once they ensure that they're the right size and they have all the nuts, then they're going to go through that layer of chocolate, that curtain of chocolate, and then they're going to go through the cooling tunnel and get chilled. And then from there, they will get hand packed. You might have noticed on the buttercream, it's going to have that little stribbon design. And that's a little extra detail that they put on some of the pieces, and it's called a stribbon machine. And based on how fast the conveyor belts are moving and how that is shaking will determine the design on top of the chocolate, and that helps you identify what the piece is based on what it looks like, which is really cool. All right, let's get into some more fun facts about the chocolate. How does it turn into chocolate after they prepare the bean? Like, what happens to it? So let's dive into that. This is a bowl of actual cacao beans. This is what they look like. And I am going to crack one open so you guys can see what this looks like. Let me find a big one. Here's a good one right here. Okay. So this one looks really interesting. Look at the texture of that. See how it has kind of like this skin, right? So it just flakes right off like that. And it's kind of like the skin of a peanut. Like when you crack open a peanut and you peel it off, it has like this little skin. So we'll get the skin off really quick. Yeah, so this is like, it just comes right off very easily. And then this is the bean, it's what it looks like. And when you crack it open, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for that dark brown color. Do you see how dark it is on the inside? Let me get my camera to focus on the bean, not on my face. There we go, look at that. Right, it's all dark and brown. That's the color that we want. So when we are getting our beans, we have to sort through them to make sure we get the right fermentation process. So it's completed. So we have this little cool board that actually cracks them open for us. We put the beans in, we shut it, we slice through it, it cracks them all open. So then we have a photo there of what it looks like when it is fermented properly and when it is not. The ones that we would choose are the ones with a darker brown inside. We want to be completely brown on the inside and on the outside. So those are the ones that we're going to source. After we bag them all up, we send them to Elizabethtown, and that is where they get roasted to bring out all of the flavor. So a lot of people ask, is white chocolate chocolate? Yes, it is. And the reason why, the picture at the bottom where it says grinding and mixing, really take a look at that. See how creamy that chocolate is? That is 100% bean. So at that point, we haven't added anything to it yet. It's just the bean itself that has been grounded into a liquid. A lot of people ask, well, do you add something to it to make it creamy? We don't have to, because beans are made up of 50% cocoa butter and 50% cocoa solid. And it's the cocoa solid that has the dark brown color. So with white chocolate, that's why it's kind of more of a creamy, buttery color, because there is no cacao solid. It's just the cocoa butter, and they add some cream, sugar, and vanilla, and that's kind of the base of white chocolate. Now, milk chocolate goes through a crumb process where they add the powdered milk and the cocoa solids, and they use a pressurized oven to kind of mix it and grind it, so that way it has this nice, smooth, silky texture, and that's how we get the milk to get into the cocoa solids, so it is a milk chocolate. And then of course with dark chocolate, the higher the percentage, the darker, the more roasted flavor you're going to get. And once we got all of our chocolate ready, they're gonna send it to us in Henderson, Nevada. And then we will temper our chocolate and use the enrobing and molding line to cover our pieces. So here is a really cool close-up picture of the enrobing machine. And so far, most of our chocolates have been covered in the enrober. If you were a nut allergen and if you had a nut allergy and you had the vanilla, that one's actually going to be a molding process. And we are going to be talking about how that piece was created in just a bit. So that is how chocolate is created. So now let's get into the dark side of our chocolate tasting. So with this piece, some of you might have gotten the dark or the milk raspberry. Either one is fine, whichever one you would like to try. I'm going to try the dark one. That's the one that I have today. So notice the design on the piece. This one has a very unique design to it, right? It has these really cool lines on it, and you'll notice that the outside is dark chocolate, but the inside is a milk chocolate. The little drizzle on the outside is the milk chocolate. And so if you had a milk chocolate raspberry, the lines would be a dark chocolate. So let's go ahead and smell it and see if we can actually smell the raspberry. To me, because of the chocolate, it kind of tastes, well, I haven't tasted it yet, but it smells like cherry. That's what it's reminding me of. I definitely can tell that there's a fruit in there. All right, so if you haven't done the news trick again, let's go ahead and do that again if you'd like. This one's a really fun piece to do that one on. So you're gonna hold your nose shut, take a bite, and hold it for as long as you can, and then release, okay? So hold your nose shut, take a bite. And then release. That one has a lot of flavor, right? It's really tart, but it's also very sweet, just like a raspberry. It definitely goes straight into fruity. Right away, I noticed the fruit first. Then I notice the chocolate. Like the chocolate's kind of like an after note to it. Like it's all about that raspberry and the tartness. And it even kind of tastes like a floral flavor, like a perfume or citrus blossom. This one's really good. So this one is created with our cream beater. So that's how we get that nice, fluffy, but fudgy, thick texture. So we melt down the ingredients in the steam kettle. From there, it's then put into a cream beater, and this machine will then cool it down to just the right temperature. When it's ready, the chef can tell just by the touch and feel of it and how it looks when it's ready to add the puree. We add a fruit puree to the base. So when you watch it live and you're watching it in the factories being made, it kind of looks like caramel at first. So the ingredients are basically like sugar. It's like caramelized sugar. So it kind of looks like creamy caramel. But then they put the fruit puree in, and then it gets like this dark purple color. And as it's starting to cool, this picture was taken right in the middle, right before it gets like that light fluffy pink color that you guys see in your piece. It's still kind of transitioning from a liquid to a very thick fudgy buttercream. So as it's mixing, it's kind of folding the filling in. It's designed to kind of slowly fold in the puree, and then it gets really thick and fudgy, and it's kind of almost like, it looks like dough. Like you can just pick it up like dough, and they kind of knead it like dough, and they pick it up and they put it in this machine called the extruder, which then shapes the perfect little round mounds of raspberry. And then from there, they're going to go through that curtain of chocolate and get covered in the enrobing machine and go through this Stribbon designer. And again, that Stribbon designer has these tiny little hoses connected to a little trough filled with chocolate. And it's constantly pumping chocolate in, and the little streams of chocolate going down will shake in different patterns based on how the pattern is supposed to look, and how fast the conveyor belt moves will determine the design. And so there's a few different pieces that we have that have their own unique design, and this is one of them. This one is the raspberry. It has the kind of interlaced design, which is pretty cool. All right, well, let's cleanse our palates and move on. we're already at the last piece. I don't want it to end because I'm having so much fun with you guys. But let's go ahead and cleanse. And then let's get into our last chocolate. So we've got two options here for you guys. We have the dark chocolate lemon satin cream. And then we also have the dark chocolate espresso truffle. This is a tough one for me because these are two of my favorites. So I'm like, let's try this one first. This one's just too exciting to not try. This one's so good. So let's go with lemon. I'm gonna go with lemon. If you guys wanna go with espresso, go right ahead. We're gonna talk about both of them. So this one is a dark chocolate, so is the espresso. But notice the shape of this one. It's completely different. This one has that shiny coating. It's got a really cool design on the top. It's a lemon leaf. So that kind of gives it away sometimes if you didn't already know it was a lemon. Go ahead and smell your chocolate. With this one, I can never smell the lemon. It just smells like dark chocolate to me. It's a very strong flavor, so it surprises me that you can't smell it. But let's go ahead and take a bite. This was really drippy, really smooth, creamy, but thick at the same time. And it draws your jaws up just a little bit, right? One's kind of sour. I think it's a little sassy, you know? It's very zesty. It goes into fruity. It definitely goes into roasted with kind of like a coffee espresso finish towards the end. And a little bit of floral. I can definitely see that. I would say probably, I taste kind of like a rose flavor, but also I taste like a citrus blossom. And another cool thing about our chocolate is that there is a little bit of citrus. It's very, very little. So sometimes you can't always notice it, but there is a little bit of like citrus in our dark chocolate, which is pretty cool. All righty. Let's go ahead and try the espresso truffle. This one's going to be a little bit more bitter because of the powder on the outside. It's actually cocoa powder. And you can't really smell like the coffee from it. But when you bite into it, the bitterness from the outside mixing with the filling is really kind of bring out a coffee espresso kind of taste. That one is so good. Excuse me. So that one is really good. It's really creamy on the inside. Again, that one's a truffle. So it has kind of a, pardon me for 1 second. The powder kind of got in my throat a little bit. Sorry about that. I'm good now. But yeah, that one's really, really creamy. It's really good. And it definitely has that like kind of espresso flavor to it when it mixed with that cocoa powder. Alrighty, well that is the last piece, you guys. We're going to have Stephanie join us. She is gonna tell you some really cool stuff about what's coming up with you guys.
Hey everyone, this is Stephanie and Stella. Just wanted to say hi and thank you so much for joining. I just had a short message from the Women in Mars. We have two groups, Women in Engineering and Women of R&D, and we just put this little slide together for you guys. So, sorry. Do you ever think about how you can have a sweet career working with candy? Go-getting, innovating, risk-taking, leader. Women have opportunities to thrive at Mars. Consider an education path in STEAM. You can make a difference applying scientific principles while still having fun. You can become a confectionery professional. So it's our goal at Mars to provide opportunities for female associates to lead across the Mars business. 42% of Mars associates in the talent pipeline are women, and we want to continue to increase that number. So think about that when you're thinking about your future career. Well, I hope you guys had fun.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. So I want to go ahead and answer some questions. I know some of you had some questions throughout that I would love to address. So give me one moment. And I know someone asked, are you able to eat the raw cocoa bean and what does it taste like?
Ooh, okay. Yes. At that point, you can eat the raw cocoa bean. It kind of tasted like an espresso bean, but stronger. I also got to try the ground 100% bean when it becomes a liquid after it's already ground. And I literally tried one drop, like a drop, and it tasted like tobacco and coffee grounds and leather, like all
Wow.
at the same time. It tasted like dirt. If you ever get the opportunity, you should try it because it's really interesting because you could still tell that it tasted like chocolate. It was really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know there's like super dark percentages of chocolate bar in the grocery store. So I think that probably gives you a good idea of how just the
Yes.
flavor tastes.
I've reached up to 90.
Yeah.
I love chocolate.
And then also just a side note, if anyone has any more questions while we have some time, use the Q&A function. If you raise your hand or if you use the chat, I can't really see that. The only way I can see your questions is with the Q&A function. So go ahead and use that for any more questions coming up. Ooh, this is a good one. I would love to hear, Tammy Jo, about your career path and how you came into this role.
Yes. Okay. Well, let me give you a little history about me. I loved factories ever since I was a little kid. I just loved watching the how it's made shows and the factories and the equipment and how each little part of the machine makes a difference just by the subtle movements of it. And I just was fascinated by it. So I always wanted to work with something like that. And then I also have this huge passion for chocolate. I definitely probably ate way too much chocolate when I was a kid, but now I know how to eat in moderation and the best chocolate. So as I learned, it's a fruit. I absolutely loved chocolate. So as soon as I got old enough, I applied and they hired me. So I was very, very excited to learn about chocolate and how it's created and how the machines work and how each little detail goes into each piece. And it just is fascinating to me and I absolutely love it. My favorite movie, can anybody guess what my favorite movie was when I was a kid? I bet you can. It was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So I used to watch that movie every single day. This one summer, I watched it every single day. And then that kind of just made me love chocolate. And I just kind of found myself here and I'm still here because I absolutely love it.
Love it. And what is your favorite piece of chocolate currently?
My favorite piece currently, I would have to say, is the Coconut Delight. That's my #1 favorite out of all of the pieces that we have.
That one is amazing. We have another one. What is the best temperature to eat chocolate? But I think a good question more is like when does chocolate start to bloom? And if you maybe can explain a little bit more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to eat chocolate is kind of the best when it's room temperature. So you don't want it to be more than like 90 degrees because that is the melting temperature of chocolate. So it kind of depends on your preference. Like I've even eaten it straight out of a freezer, so it can be very cold depending on what you're eating. But the most important part is like if you get a candy bar and it melts and you put it in the freezer right away so you can cool it down so you can get it out of the wrapper, what happens is the fat separates from the chocolate. And so it gets kind of this really weird coloring. It's called blooming. And that's when the fat cells separate from the chocolate. It's not bad for you. It's not going to be bad for you to eat it that way. It's still going to be good. It's just not going to taste as creamy. And that's the only thing. So you just want to make sure that your chocolates stay cool.
Awesome. And then I know you were a Girl Scout, correct?
I was a Girl Scout leader when my daughter was little, and we absolutely loved it.
And what was your favorite Girl Scout cookie? Someone is wanting to know that.
Oh my gosh. Thin
Can
Mint.
you pick?
Thin Mint all the way. Like that is the one. And I will buy like 3 boxes at a time. And like, I mean cases. And I split them up and each person in my family gets their own box and I hide mine because that's everybody's favorite. And so I will hide my cookies so that they will not touch them. And then sometimes I forget where I put them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have that other box.
Right.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
The best feeling when you're cleaning out your pantry and you find that box you hid in the very
Find a
back.
box hiding, and
Yeah.
I'll put it in a different cookie box so that no one touches it.
It's the best. Someone also asked about some upcoming tasting. So I do want to share with you guys another slide coming up. I mentioned we have a discount code. So we have our code virtual, and that will get you 15% off of our entire website. We just upgraded and refreshed all of our packaging in our website. So if you were on it before today or yesterday, you saw our older website, and now it is totally upgraded. Our packaging is beautiful. And then we have some upcoming tastings on the 17th, which has the exact same pieces that you tried today. And then we have more coming in October. So definitely keep an eye out for that, and you'll get 15% off with the code virtual. If anyone has any final questions, go ahead and type it into the chat box. Otherwise, it's been wonderful having you all join us tonight. It was so much fun. I loved all the interaction. It seems like you all enjoyed it. Favorite pieces. This promotion is good until Sunday night. And then we have the next tasting on the 17th. I also want to share, if you're not familiar with our Henderson Factory Garden, we're doing a virtual holiday tasting on November 6th. And we're going to decorate our entire garden with Christmas lights. You saw a slide in the very beginning with that. We're going to turn all the lights on for the very first time this year on November 6th. So follow us on Instagram at Ethel Chocolates or Facebook, or sign up for emails to be the first to know about that. We're going to have Mark Mackey, who's our R&D scientist. He helps to innovate and upgrade a lot of the pieces that we currently have, or create new pieces with flavors. He's going to be leading that tasting, so you can ask him some good questions as well, how he got into his field and everything like that. And I think that's all for questions. So thank you all so much again. I hope you all join us for our next tasting, and have a great and safe Labor Day weekend.
Bye.